Greetings, this is Amy Wentley with Chai Knuckles Knitting, and this is episode 2018-14, Continental Knitting, Purling, and Yarn Overs. I taught a class at the Hillsborough Yarn Shop yesterday, and it was for folks who are interested in learning Continental knitting, and that is knitting while holding the yarn in your left hand, as opposed to English knitting, which is holding the yarn in your right hand. So I'm going to show you today what I taught them yesterday. I had been an English knitter most of my knitting career until the last 2 years I started knitting in the Continental method, and I find that I knit much faster than I used to, and I have less hand and shoulder pain than I used to, and so those are some of the reasons why I decided to do that. When I teach my students how to Continental knit, the first thing we talk about is how to hold the yarn in your left hand. And so what I have them do is put the yarn across the back of the left hand needle like this, and then grab with your left hand with an overhand fist like that. So what that does, if you turn your hand over, you'll see that you are trapping the working yarn with these last 3 fingers against your work in the back. And that's how how you control this yarn, the tension of it. It pulls through here. So it's important that when you hold your yarn in your left hand, that you hold it securely. Now, not tightly, you don't have to give it a death grip, but just hold it securely, and that maintains your tension. So the next thing I tell them to do is to take their index finger and to dip it under the working yarn. So see how it's dipped there. And if you want to make it a little tighter, you can pull on the yarn, turn over, and there you go. It's good to keep the yarn on the tippy top part of your index finger on your left hand, like this. And the knit stitch is very simple, and I'll show you how to do that right now. So you insert your needle as if to knit, just like you would if you were holding the yarn in your right hand. But now your yarn is back behind the needle, and what you're going to want to do is take the tip of this needle and move it from the right to the left across your finger and scoop up the yarn in the back. And then you want to pull it through the loop that you put your needle through and drop it off the needle. So let me get some of this background noise away from you a little bit. So we're covering knitting here. So there you go. Okay, let's try this again. You're going to insert the yarn as if to knit. You're going to move the tip of the needle from the right to the left and grab that, pick up that piece of yarn and pull it through the loop that you inserted in. Do this really slowly again. Put it in as if to knit and push your right hand needle all the way through. That's what sizes the stitch for you. Take the tip and move from the right to the left, picking up that yarn from the back and pulling it through and then dropping off the needle. Now every time you finish a stitch, you can pull a little bit more yarn. You can just loosen up a little bit on your hands back here, let a little bit more yarn through, and do the next stitch. Insert it as if to knit, put your needle through all the way, tip goes from right to left and picks up the yarn, pulls it through. And I will finish doing this row. And when I get to the end of this row, we can then discuss purling. And I'll do this slowly for you so you can really see how things are going. And just think of it in steps. Insert, scrape and pick, pull through and off the needle. In, pick, off the needle. In, pick, off the needle. In, pick, off the needle, last stitch in, pick, off the needle. There you go. That was the knit stitch. So the next one I'm going to talk about is the purl stitch. And I want to say that if you have an issue about the first stitch is sometimes fiddly, and if you have a hard time starting, it's okay to cheat and do your first stitch in the English method, the throwing method. But I'm going to show you how I purl, and Whenever I set up and grab my yarn, I always set it up the same way, regardless of whether I'm knitting or purling. So I'm going to bring my yarn to the back, do an overhand grab, dip my finger under to get the yarn situated on my finger. Then the first thing that you need to do with purling is bring your yarn to the front, because we know we bring our yarn to the front. Now the method that you're going to use for purling is you're going to be pivoting your left hand finger here. See how I'm doing that? So I'm going to insert my needle as if to purl in the front, and I'm going to wrap the yarn around and pull it through. Now that's the first stitch. That's a little bit different. Watch this second stitch and we'll break it down for you, okay? And as I said, if you want to do that first stitch English while you're learning, don't feel like you're cheating. You know, it's a good way to handle it. So my yarn starts in the back. I need to bring my yarn to the front. A good way to move your yarn is to just lift your right hand needle. That's in the front. Now that yarn's in the back. Now the yarn's in the front. Now the yarn's in the back. So I'm going to bring my yarn to the front to purl. I take my right hand needle and it goes under the yarn. It goes into the stitch from the front as if to purl. And if I bend my right hand needle a little bit, you can see that my yarn is already halfway wrapped around my right hand needle. So I just need to move my index finger on my left hand to the front and down, and it finishes wrapping that stitch. Then all I need to do is dip and pull it through the loop. So I'll try that again. The yarn is in the front. I put my right hand needle under the working yarn into the stitch, bend the right needle a little bit to partially wrap it, bring my left finger in the front and pull the stitch through. Okay, let's try that one more time. Bring my right hand needle under the yarn in front, into the stitch, bend my right hand needle a little bit, bring my left finger to the front and pull the stitch through off the needle. There you go. So my yarn's in the back now. I need to bring my yarn in the front. Right hand needle goes under both. Tip my right hand needle, bring my left hand index finger to the front and pull this off. Yarn's in front, under and in, bend the right needle, left finger down, pull it through. Now my yarn's in the back again. That happens kind of naturally. And so what I'm going to do is bring my yarn to the front. I just lift the needle to bring my yarn to the front, under the working yarn, into the stitch, and pull through. Under the working yarn, into the stitch, bend the right needle, bring the left finger forward, and push through. Yarn in front, under, and off. 3 more stitches. So yarn in front, under, bend the right needle, pull that through, and off, under, bend the right needle, bring the right finger forward, off, and then there you go. Okay, so that's purling. Now the last thing I want to show you is how to do yarn overs while holding the yarn in your left hand. And this is very delightful. I think lace knitting is much more fun now that I do continental knitting. So what we're going to do is I'm going to knit a couple of stitches. I'm going to do a yarn over and then I'm going to knit 2 together. So this is knit 1, knit 2, and then yarn over. To do a yarn over, all I have to do is take my right hand needle, take it from the tip of the needle from right to the left and grab that piece of yarn, and that is my yarn over right there. Then I knit the next 2 stitches together. There you go. Now let's say I was supposed to I'm going to knit a stitch. I'm going to knit 2 together. Then I'm going to do a yarn over and I'm going to purl a stitch. So it's going to be a yarn over followed by a purl stitch. It's going to be a little bit different. So here I'm going to knit 1. I'm going to knit 2 together. Sorry, there we go. And then I'm going to yarn over and followed by a purl stitch. So how I do that is same thing as I reach the tip of my needle from right to left and grab that. But then I lift this whole loop to go in front of my left needle. See how it's in front now? And I go ahead and I purl that next stitch. So that's how to do a yarn over followed by a purl stitch. So that's all I have to show you today. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And thank you for watching today, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.